Marvel Rivals is a very popular hero shooter that takes some of Marvel's most iconic comic book characters and some of the more obscure ones and puts them in this 6v6 mode. So today I want to look at these characters and determine who is the most powerful according to the lore of their comic book counterparts. The way it's going to work is I have the tiers here on the side from Street all the way up to Galaxy Plus, and the characters will be put on the rank where their power level corresponds, and then they will be ordered appropriately. And it's assumed that if you're in a higher rank, you are more powerful than everyone in the lower rank. I also will point out that these are comic book characters, so everyone has had some insane feat where they sneeze and blow up a universe or something like that. So I know there is some fluctuation in power, but I want to, as accurately as I can, assign them a rank to their relative normal power level. And I will go from the least powerful up to the most powerful. So starting with the least powerful character in Marvel Rivals, it is going to be Jeff the Land Shark. Now, I know in the game, Jeff's ult can be pretty annoying. He can cause some havoc. But in the comics, he's literally just a pet shark for Gwenpool. No powers, nothing crazy, I guess, other than being a mutant shark. He can bite. He's cute. But there's nothing really stopping you from just punting him and being done with it. Just above him is going to be Mantis, one of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And Mantis is a cool character. I think she's interesting. But power-wise, she's pretty weak. She's like regular human tier power, and pretty much every single other person on this list could take her out. Above her is going to be Cloak and Dagger. Again, a cool character, but not much more powerful than, again, kind of like an average human. Then we've got Squirrel Girl, and I know that's one of those characters people are going to say, like, oh, Squirrel Girl beat Thanos or whatever. And I know that she is kind of a meme character and has some really high-end feats. But if we're being honest, Squirrel Girl is not that powerful, and she would lose to almost everyone on this list, including the next one, who's going to be Rocket Raccoon and his best pal Star-Lord. Again, these are just sort of human tier characters with weapons that do put them, obviously higher on the list to a degree. Depending on the weapon they have, they could be much higher, but as they're consistently normally shown, I think this is pretty accurate. Above them, we will have Black Widow, who I think is more highly skilled than everyone else on this list, and she does have some tech and some weapons as well. And then Hawkeye above her, which is kind of my preference. You could probably interchange these two, but Hawkeye has such an array of arrows that it provides him a lot of versatility that I think does put him up a little bit higher. If this is the Matt Fraction Hawkeye, then probably a little bit lower, but I think this is solid. Then we're going to have Luna, who is a new character and really came from a video game. So there's not a ton about her in the comics, though her character, the little that she's shown up, she just kind of has ice powers. She's nothing that crazy, but she does have actual powers and seems to be able to use them pretty well. So I would put her higher than these, though I could see somebody like Hawkeye or Black Widow being above her. And at the top of our street tier, our most powerful street tier character is going to be the Punisher. Now, the Punisher is a normal human, but he's gone toe-to-toe with very powerful characters like Wolverine and Captain America and so on. He's extremely skilled, and he is a walking arsenal, which I think puts him above everybody else on this list. Moving to the next tier, our city tier. At the very bottom, we are going to have Penny Parker. Again, not much is known about her in the comics. She was in the Spider-Verse movie where she made a brief appearance. She essentially just has a mech that is spider-based, has some spider powers, which certainly puts her above street tier, but I don't think it's terribly impressive. Above her, we do have some Fantastic Four members now. The Human Torch and the Thing are not in the game yet. They are going to be in the game in a couple weeks at the time of this recording, but since this tier list has them already, I will use them, and I will put the Human Torch next, along with Invisible Woman and Mr. Fantastic. So 3 Fantastic Four members here are all city level. The Human Torch, I think, is the weakest among them. He does have some pretty powerful powers, but just his mentality and kind of how goofy and brash he is, I think, puts him at the bottom. Invisible Woman, physically, is just like a regular girl, but her invisible powers, obviously very good. Her force fields are very strong. She's been able to use those to stop people like Doctor Doom and more powerful villains. And then Mr. Fantastic at the very top. He is pretty powerful, but I think his main thing is how smart he is. His intelligence is able to really propel him further with how he can use his powers and how he can win situations. Above him, we're going to have Moon Knight. Marvel Comics' very own Batman is going to be a little higher. In the comics recently, his power has kind of been spiking, and he's been doing some pretty crazy things. but consistently, I think this is a pretty good spot for him. And above him, we're going to get into our super soldiers. So we're going to have the Winter Soldier above him, and then Captain America, and then Wolverine. So all sort of super soldier tier characters, peak human. I think Cap's definitely above Bucky, and I think Wolverine is above Captain America. Though I could see the argument that those two should be switched, but I think the healing factor with the indestructible claws, I think Wolverine is on top here. But there are some on the city level above him. Next, we're going to have Iron Fist, who I do think is above Wolverine and Captain America. I think when they fought in the comics before, in hand-to-hand combat, it actually has been kind of close between these two. But with the Iron Fist ability, Iron Fist is kind of on another level. He one-shot a helicarrier in one book, caught bullets with his bare hands, stuff like that. He definitely deserves a spot above these guys. Though the top of city level has to go to Spider-Man. Spider-Man is way more powerful than a lot of people give him credit for. He's constantly holding back, and physically he mogs the rest of these guys. Moving into our island tier characters, in terms of their power and destructive capability, at the bottom of our island tier, we are going to have Psylocke, who is quite powerful. At peak, her psionic abilities can get pretty competitive with some of these guys. So I think she earns a spot slightly above the city level. Above her, though, we are going to have Venom, who, again, in the comics recently has just been boosting his power level insanely. Definitely deserves this spot. Above Venom, we're actually going to have Storm from the X-Men. Purely because of her destructive capability. With her weather manipulation, she could honestly wipe out an entire island by causing a hurricane or something like that. So hand to hand, she's going to lose to a lot of people on this list, but pure destructive capability, actual power, definitely deserves to be up here. Above her, we're going to have Magic, who not only is a mutant who has some teleportation abilities, but she is a sorceress. She does have control over the limbo dimension and different stuff like that. So very powerful. Strong magical user. I think she actually is consistently stronger than Iron Man, who I'm going to put above her. But Iron Man has so many suits in the comics that it's like, well, he has some suits that would absolutely destroy her. There's some suits where she would destroy him. But I think where he's been at for, decades now, at least a decade, he definitely is above her in terms of power output. But above Iron Man, who's going to round out our island tier characters, is going to be the master of magnetism, champion for mutant kind, Magneto. Heading off our island tier, the destructive capability of Magneto is insane. You could probably make the argument that he's planetary in terms of what he can do. But again, I think issue-to-issue character, top of island tier, suits him quite well. Jumping up to planetary plus tier characters. The potential to destroy a planet and more. At the bottom, I'm actually going to have Groot. Now, Groot may not seem that powerful, especially, referring to the MCU, but Groot's actually had some really good showings in the comics, like fighting super powerful people like the Gladiator, for example, who's tangled with, Thor and Silver Surfer and other guys. Groot can definitely hold his own with some heavy hitters, so I think at least bottom of the planetary plus tier suits him well. Above him, we're going to have Namor, who is very powerful. I think he's probably underrated in terms of power. Namor has made Thanos bleed before. He's punched the Hulk so hard that he came out of his Hulk form. He's tangled with the Thing plenty of times. And when he's in water, obviously, he's much more powerful. Above him, we're going to have Scarlet Witch. Now, this is a character whose power has fluctuated to be universal levels of power and a little bit below. She is very powerful. I feel comfortable putting her here near the top of planetary level. Though you could argue she should be, higher or lower. And then topping off planetary plus is going to be the Thing. Now, the Thing, I think, is probably the most underrated comic book character in all of Marvel Comics. I think he's really solar system level, if maybe even higher, depending on some feats. But he's at least sort of top of this planet. Plus, I don't think he's quite in the galaxy level. We know he goes toe-to-toe with the Hulk, but he always loses against the Hulk. So he's not quite there, but he is extremely powerful and could beat anybody else on this list. From here, we're making a jump. We're going from planetary level, skipping star, skipping solar system, jumping up to galaxy plus levels of power. And before I do that, I realize I left Black Panther down here. And so I would put him right here, just below Captain America. Same thing with like that super soldier group I was talking about. But into the Galaxy Plus tier now, at the bottom, I am going to put the Hulk. Another character with huge fluctuations in power just because there's so many different Hulk forms, from base Hulk to Planet Hulk, World War Hulk, World Breaker Hulk, Immortal Hulk. This version that we're seeing here, which is kind of the Savage Hulk, I think does bottom out on this tier. Above him, we're going to have Adam Warlock. And Adam Warlock is actually a lot more powerful than maybe people know. He spent some time in the Soul Stone. He's tangled with the likes of Silver Surfer and Thanos. He is very, very powerful. But even more powerful than him is going to be some of Thor's family. We've got Hela, and we've got Loki. Both gods, obviously, both with intense magical abilities. Both with the potential to be universal threats. Loki in particular has caused, the end of the world multiple times. But they're not the top. With just 2 characters left, the top spot, I think, has to go to Thor. I think Doctor Strange is number 2, and Thor is number 1. And the reason for this is, if this was standard Thor, standard Doctor Strange, I do think Doctor Strange would be higher. Over his course in the comics, he's been one of the most powerful beings in Marvel, period. And as a Sorcerer Supreme, he can do pretty much anything, which puts him extremely high in terms of power. I think above Thor typically. But the specific version of Thor in the game is Thor with the Odin Force. It's adult, aged, grown-up Thor. And Odin Force Thor, that version of Thor, is so insanely powerful. He's on the same level as Odin. So insanely powerful, it puts him above every other character in this game, probably combined. So I could see the argument for Doctor Strange being number 1, but I do think that Thor is going to take it and take his top spot as the most powerful character in Marvel Rivals, according to the comic book lore. Let me know what you think of this list. Anybody that I got wrong or need to move around, let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.